Good evening, everybody. To our webinar 2020. This is our actually last week. So we think our last also grandfully, successfully we will continue. And we are also having so many so many speakers this week also. And for today, also we are having very much eminent speaker, Dr. Tuhin Kanti Vishwas. He is also HOD and professor in Chikiৎসা department from the college, that is the JB Roy State Ayurvedic Medical College and Hospital. And today his topic is Ayurgenomics. So warm-heartedly I am requesting sir, welcome, and please start towards our participants.
Well, good evening. Am I audible, Priyanka?
Yes sir, you are audible sir.
Okay, thanks. So,
Yes.
very good evening. Very good evening of this Sunday. First of all, I must say my privilege to Professor Tapas Kumar Mandal, the principal of Rajiv Gandhi Ayurvedic College and Hospital, who has invited me for delivering this speech. I must also convey my heartiest congratulations to Dr. Priyanka Ganguly, who has arranged this series of CME in a very lucid manner. And I think that she is the only person in the eastern part of our country from Ayurvedic fraternity who has arranged such type of the CME. I feel myself proud to be one of the speakers in this series. So today I'll talk in a particular topic. I have found that there are some personalities who are very knowledgeable, knowledgeable person like Dr. Argo Mukherjee, Dr. Suresh Jaisaria, and so many. And also I think that the students from the Rajiv Gandhi Memorial Ayurvedic College is here, along with some faculties, for giving me opportunity for delivering my speech in this particular CM. So I like to speak with my PPT presentation. I think that you will allow me for presenting my PPT. So we'll start our journey from this particular picture. This is a very simple picture. And you can find that in this picture, we can see a typical manner of the universal arrangement. In this universe, there is everything which is arranged in a symmetrical manner, in a equilibrium manner. And that equilibrium manner, which is being arranged in this art, our beloved art, is also reflected in the human being. And it is the human being who can control this equilibrium, this harmonic state, and can make a connection with the external world from its internal environment. That's why, if we go back to the Veda, we can find there is an important verse in the Rig Veda, Kratumayam Purusho Tatsmat Kratum Kurbito. As a man determines, so he becomes. So it is the man who can determine. If a man determines that he or somebody will destroy the universe, they can. And as an example, we can see the current situation of the COVID pandemic. That is nothing but due to some ignorance to the nature by the human being. And the journey has started long back when the Antarctica started to dissolve these ices and the sea become cleared up. So these balance when become derangement, there is disease. We know it very well from Ayurvedic point of view. Not only from Ayurvedic point of view, it is universal truth that we cannot break this harmony. If the harmony is maintained, the health will be maintained. Dr. Tapas Mandal has started the CME with his speech, and I repeat his initiation with a very important sloka. Shamadosha samaknishcha samadhat malakriya prasanna atmendya mana swasta itya videte. Everybody has know it very well. I'm not going into detail. But the most important fact is that this equilibrium, this balanced state of the physiological, anatomical, psychological, spiritual part has been explained so long back, about 3,500 years back, which is now being accepted by WHO in 1979 Almaata, where the definition of the health has been mentioned, that is an equilibrium and harmonic mental, social, economical, and spiritual well-being. So this balance, which is maintained from the external environment to the internal environment, is a link is there. And this link is maintained by several factors, and one of the important factors is the physiological units. In the 16th century, the French scientist Claude Bernard has mentioned milieu intérieur. I mean internal environment. The wholesomeness, there is a relations between the external internal, but in our science it was mentioned so back. And that can be maintained by one individual, every individual, or a cluster of people of the same categories. And that has been mentioned in the language of Ayurveda. I'll talk today on that particular issue. Ayurgenomics, the personalized and predictive medicine. An Ayurvedic background with some modern approach, but other Ayurvedic approach with modern background. The concept was elaborated long back by our ancestors in every part of this our science. Now, the scientists are trying to find out what is the fundamental, what is the genetical, what is the actual molecular basis of this particular issue. So, the respected participants, my dear students, will now go in deeper part of this as far as possible within 1.5 hours like that. I don't know how far I'll be able to cover it. Let's go back the origin of the universe. If we go back about the origin of the universe, about 13.7 billion years ago, since the Big Bang. And you know very well that this universe, this world has been evolved from the sun. And that comes out in the form of the fireball. It cools down. And there is the creation of the life. And that life in the form of unicellular manner. Well, as the goes on time, these changes came into the formation of the most important creature, the human being. We know the name of the great poet Rabindranath Tagore, who wrote in his very important poem, Africa. উদ্ভ্রান্ত সে আদিম যুগে স্রষ্টা যখন নিজের প্রতি অসন্তোষে নতুন সৃষ্টিকে বারবার করছিলেন বিধ্বস্ত, and by that time during the creation it is the human being who has evolved, and that was started from the Africa, southern part of the Africa. That's why our great poet has named that poem in that such Africa. So in this universe, there was some genesis of the human being. And this human being, they started their journey only by getting the food, followed by the shelter, and ultimately they tried to acquire the knowledge from the nature. So these human beings who are searching the knowledge throughout the world, and one group of people from there, the human being, a group of people who are searching throughout the world for the knowledge from the nature. And one group, they enters in our country, India, through the Khyber Pass. We know they are not but the Aryans. And these Aryans were started initially to have on the worship to the nature, to the God, etc. But later on, they feel that they have some changes in their body. They could not understand it. And then they made one conference. Hopefully, this is the first ever conference on the healthcare, which was occurred at the plain of the Himalaya, Chaitya. You can find this description in the Charak Samhita. So from that conference, the first gist of the Ayurveda was evolved from these two schools. One is the school of the physicians led by the Agnivesh, and other is the school of surgeon by the Sushruti. Know it very well. I'm not going in detail about the history. But one thing that was decided both by the school is that we should fix up some aims of the Ayurveda. Two aims. One is the Swasthya, other is the that the Vikarapasa. How we can do it? We can do it with the science, and that science which will deal about the some stages of the life, span of life. Hitam, ahitam, sukham, dukkham. Hitam means we know very well that it deals with the physical part. And sukham, it is also wholesome, but it is concerned with the mental factors. And ahitam is the, again, the bad towards the physical part, and dukkham is towards the mental part. We can measure it. Only the science where the measurement of this span of life, this type of span of life is mentioned, is described. That's why it is the unique science. And that is done only on the basis of the three factors, Sarir, Indriyo and Atma. And achievement at four, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksham. What are these four achievements? Are acts. We should do it in our lifestyle. Otherwise, there will be destruction. We cannot be able to maintain the balance. Requirement of health. We'll target the gratification of the health, and finally the emancipation, which is the ultimate goal. In this journey, the whole journey should be very comfortable. That was the aim. And that aim can be done by two ways, either by the preventive and promotional therapy or by the curative therapy. Now, on the basis of this aim, every individual is to be judged by our physicians. How and where this type of therapy or how further therapy can be selected. There may be several types of therapies. That is a different issue. But selectivity of the therapy does not only promote, it's also part of therapy. We emphasize it more, preventive aspects. And that can be achieved by personalized medicine. What is personalized medicine? According to Ayurveda. Let's see that there are some stages in our life. One is called the normal. If we are healthy, it may turn to some symptoms, may not be disease. It may be some symptoms which can give the hint that the disease is appearing now. We know that this is nothing but the Purvaru. Premonitory symptoms are the prodromal symptoms. And changes from normal to the pre-disease occurring in the body by changing of doses, with some changes in the stages as mentioned by Sushrita in the description of Kriya Kala. Chaya Prakapa Prasura Sthana Samsai Vyakti and Bhedo. And if we ignore this pre-disease to disease, and that we convert it to progress and ultimately to the complications, that is the Bhedo. In this journey, we have the scope of prevention between normal and pre-disease. Again, we have the scope for the diagnosis and screening between the Purva Rupa and the Rupa. We have the scope for understanding the prognosis, and ultimately we have the scope to customize the therapy by means of the Ahar, Bihar, or any other pattern of lifestyle changes, drug, diet, and lifestyles. So this is the personalized medicine, which is dealing to every individual from the stage of normal to the pre-disease and progression complication. And that will be able to maintain the health and quality of life. Let's see what is being said by the personalized medicine in modern. Is there any? We say the prayojanam chasya shastra swastra rakshana matra sabikara pasanam. But modern medicine is persons. They say the personal medicine in some similar but more other focus. If you go to the modern text of the medicine, Harishans, practice and principle of medicine, whenever I was students of the UG or the PG level, by that time, this part of the medicine was not included in the Harishan, the personalized medicine. But now, in the latest edition, 2 to 3 backs, Harishan has included this personalized medicine issue. What is that? They think that cluster of patients. You can find it in the picture. There are 4 clusters of patients. Some are red, some are green, some are yellow, some are gray. All the people have the same diagnosis. Say, for example, everybody is suffering the corona. In a particular stage, may not be in a very stage of this cytokine storm. It may be some mild stage or some moderate stage. There is a scope of treatment. We do not need to go for the ICU like that. The modern person, they are prescribing some particular drug, hydroxychloroquine or such and so on and forth. But we observe that this drug is not being found active to all persons. It may be found that the drug is toxic. It may be beneficial, as we found in the green paper. It is not acting in the human body. Red people. It can be found that drug is not toxic, but it is not again acting in the human body, as it found in the yellow. The rest, the gray people, they are found to be non-toxic and beneficial. So only a cluster of people, this is personalized medicine. These clusters have some specificity. That's why the drug is acting to that. Drug is saying, not only in case of corona, this can be found in all other conditions. Some infective disease where we used to prescribe some antibiotics, antiviral, antifungal drugs, or even some other conditions, non-infectious disease. This is the idea of personalized medicine in modern medicine. That's why nowadays they are not prescribing the same drug for all people. They are judging, they try to judge. But you know that judgment is far behind the judgment that is mentioned in Ayurveda. Now, what is the background for which these differences are there from one to other? This background was invented in 1954 by 2 scientists. The scientists of the last millennium of the biological science, Watson and Crick. You know that they are very people. They invented the double helix DNA. And this double helix DNA that contains a particular part which is called the chromosome, which has particular structures. I think that the students, they have come here after passing the higher secondary with biology. They know it very well. I'm not going in detail about these. Just I'm going some glimpses. This is the structures where there are 2 fundamental parts. Some carbon and sugar pentose is there, and they are bind with some nucleic acids, either the pyrimidine or the purine group, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. And they become helical in structure because of the bending of the hydrogen ion bond, what is called the Brownian motion, weak force motion, with the disulfide bond, etc. Everything is lying within the core of this DNA. What Greek has invented. double-stranded DNA. Because within that, there is the structure which is lying very core, which is called the chromosome. The chromatin. The chromatin and chromosome, they are the fundamental part of gene. Nowadays, we do not talk about the chromosome. Nowadays, we talk about some only nucleic acid, particular one nucleic acid, one group of nucleic acid. And that particular nucleic acid of the chromosome may express some particular activities. We call it the single nucleotide polymorphism, SNP. We'll give the example how the SNPs can be evaluated. So this is the model on which we are dealing. And on the basis of this model, we can judge one individual. Because the human being is constructed by nature with some particular manner, particular way. For example, you can see this is the map. This is a site map. This site map was designed to build up one building. Whatever it may be, the Rajiv Gandhi Ayurveda College, the JP Raj State Ayurveda Hall, whatever it may be, there is a need of one fundamental structure. What will be the staircase, what will be the bathroom, what will be the dining room, etc., classroom, etc. In the human body, there is a type of this mapping. We call it as the genetic mapping. And this genetical mapping is done on the basis of the physical phenotyping character, and which depends upon the DNA sequences completely. So this is the fundamental part of the human genome projects. We know that we have a 23 pair of the human chromosomes. Out of the 22 are the autosomes, one pair of the sex chromosomes. No. Now we have encoded the chromosomes. About 30 to 40,000 genes are present in this particular. And we can do the mapping of these. Mapping by means of the human genome projects. We can find out the particular loci of the chromosome. There are so many loci you can find. For example, in case of diabetes mellitus, you can find there is a particular loci we call the IDD1 gene, 2 gene, like that. So this is the loci where it is locating. And now we are also thinking about the SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism. Well, that is one nucleotide is enough to express a disease. In our science, we say only one quality of the particular dose is responsible to express one disease. Bhato has 7 qualities, Dukso Chalo, Vishwa Kharo, Sita, etc. So this genetical map is most important. Genetical map, unless you know it, that we will not be able to it. What is talking that? Now we're talking about the SNPs. Only one nucleotide is enough to express one disease. Only one guna of the dose is enough to express one disease. If the Sita guna of the Bhato is increased, that will express some type of specific symptoms. If the Ushta qualities of the Pitta is increased, it may lead for the Amla Pittam, so and so forth. So we call it the Angsamsa Kalpana, and genetic people call it the SNP. One such SNP is this one. You can see this mapping. The name of this particular SNP is chromosome 7. You know that this chromosome 7 is responsible to express one disease, which is known as cystic fibrosis, which occurs in the lungs, where the cilia loses its motility. And as a result, the patient may suffer with dyspnea, with mimicking with the bronchial asthma. It is not the bronchial asthma. Cystic fibrosis is something else. It mimics with the bronchiectasis. Again, it is not bronchiectasis. So this is one SNP. There are so many SNPs so far has been developed, invented, described by means of the physical mapping, by means of the genetical mapping. We call it the HAP map. HAP map is a project, worldwide project, and this project is also been implemented in our country, in India. So this HAP map project, there are 3 billion pair of the DNA per haploid genome and SNP. which is invented by this HapMap project. And that HapMap project has expressed that this particular gene may be prevalent in particular community. We call it the one in all and all in one. Only one gene, only one quality of that. And basing on this, the theory of Ayurgenomics was based. The Ayurgenomics is a particular issue. And that issue is based on the human subjects evaluation, which was started from southern part of Africa. And from there, they are spread across the world. They are adapted to the climates, adapted to the food, the sources, the pathogens. And due to this adaptogenicity, there is change of genetical pattern. Even in a human life, one can achieve one genetical factor from his or her parents, but that can be changed when they're exposed to some particular geographical or that some climatic changes. We call it as the epigenetics. In our science, there is also mentioned epigenetics. I'm coming one after another. Now, we can see that the high altitude, arid region, different latitudes are different peoples. We call the Anup days, Changol days, Southern days. The pattern of those differs. Pattern of the food differs. And genetical pattern also differs. The cultural practice also differs. One important is the lactose tolerance. It is an important issue. Lactose tolerance, you know that it is an issue which is found in a particular community in a particular part. We, the people of the India, who are residing in a particular zone of the world, is called the tropical zone. And we are very prone for a particular type of disease which is called the vector-borne disease, like malaria, like Kala-Azar. It is not prevalent in the Europe, in the North America. So this prevalency depends upon the genetical pattern of our human body, our nature, which we acquire from the climatic change, from geographical change. This lady, Mitali Mukherjee, who is fundamentally a molecular biologist, she worked for her whole life on the human genome projects, HapMap projects, with the Indian context. And whenever she finds that there are some cluster of people on the basis of genetical background, ethnicity, we find that there might be some hints in our science, in our old science. So we try to search, what is that? And ultimately she got the result, she got the response from another group. You know that in the Delhi, in the Ghaziabad, there is an institute where the CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, is working on Ayurveda, TKDL, Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. Seeing the patenting of the turmeric and the neem, these forums are formed by the government, where the people are working to make the patent of all documents of Ayurveda, Unani, and Yoga. And she went there, she find that there are some hints in Ayurveda, what you call Prakriti. Her view changed. It turned from modern genetics, it tried to link with the Ayurvedic part. And she named the idea as Three Sutra. We know the Three Sutra, Etilingo Sudaganang Three Sutram Parahanam. In the Charakshangita chapter 1, Sutra Stampi got it. Well, it is not such, but that word was taken. Idea is there. I'll talk later on. Three Sutra is a forum, is a consortium. Transitional research and innovative science through Ayurgenomics. The full form is Three Sutra. Under the Three Sutra, which was done by the CSR in the umbrella of the IGIB, Institute of Genomics and Integrated Biology in the Delhi, they are working together with the Ayurveda, modern medicine, and the molecular biologist. a crosstalk between the three group of people, Ayurvedic people and the people from the molecular biology, to link up, to unwinding the all theories of Ayurveda, unwinding the all theories of genetics in the form of these personalized medicine, individualized medicine, predictive medicine. So, Ayurgenomics is starting the journey from these three sutras. And first evidence that was observed from the phenotypic character is adaptation. From the color, skin coloration. We get the description in Ayurveda that there is a very specificity about the coloration, the particular prakriti of the particular type of the dosic prevalence. Batik has one color, like the Aruna color, Krishna color. Kapha has the Gaura color, like that. That particular issue was scientifically evaluated. We know that our coloration of the skin is maintained by the one pigment which is present in our outside of the skin, melanin. And that melanin depends upon the vitamin D production and folate degradation, which is influenced by UV light, which are three particular components, UVA, UVB, UVC. Depending upon the source of this UVA, B, and C, in a particular zone of the geographical area, there is change, either light skin or dark skin. So from world, we can find that there is division of these black and white, and we do not understand what is the background of it. We used to hate one to other, and you can find now that so many incidences are occurring in the USA. George Floyd is one of the examples. But you know that the skin coloration is not maintained by one individual. It is from the genetical part. It is from the inner part. From the northern pole, if you come down to the southern pole, you can find that from the white to the black is gradually changing. And that changes is due to the soaking of the sun, and which is dependent upon the particular SNP, which is known as the SLC24A5. It is responsible for skin pigmentation, which you get from the idea from Ayurveda, where particular specificity about the coloration of the skin is maintained on the variation of the Prakriti. After 10 years of this invention of the SLC, the people from the molecular biology genetics think that there must be some relevance of the human with the lower animals. And that was first bring by one great scientist, Maynard Ostland. And who mentioned that this fundamental part is the source for the genetical research. And that's why the Human Genome Project was evolved. That was a surprise. And that surprise, we observed that the genetical link has been transmitted from Drosophila up to the human being, Homo sapiensis. And that depends upon different factors. So many SNPs, 15 million SNPs. 1 million of these 20,000 structural variants of these 15 million SNPs, which brings about. And these changes coming from the Drosophila to the bacteria to the human. That was, and now you know that the link between the Drosophila and human is now supposed to be zebrafish, which is found in our Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So, this is the fundamental part of the modern genetics. But this fundamental part was mentioned 2005 years back in our science in the name of the Prakriti. There are 7 Prakriti we know very well. Sapta Prakriti Abhavanti Doshe Pritak. I mean, individual Vata Pitta Kapho, Disho, combination of 2, Vata Pitta, Vata Kapho or Pitta Kapho, all together Samastishta. And that depends upon several factors. If one is very specifically predominant with particular factor, we call it Vatalo. There is difference between the Batojo and Batolo. Batojo means which is originated from Bato. Batolo means where the Bato is more predominant. That's why interesting the Bhima specifically mentioned. Batalasya Bato Nimitya, Pittalasya Pitta Nimitta. It never signifies that Batala means only Bayudos is present. There is also present at the Pitta and Kapha. But the amount which can be measured, as we see that in our science, we measure the Ayu. Also, we can measure these particular doses. Their expression we can measure. We can measure their qualities. So Bartolo is such type where they are primarily prevalent with the Bathodoses with their all qualities. Similar in the case of Pittolo. And this Prakriti outcome, either by Batolo, Pittolo, Kapolo, it depends on several factors, particular genetical factors. Again, these genetical factors mentioned in Ayurveda. If you go to Susha Samhita, just see that how this Prakriti has been evaluated, mentioned. Shukro Sonita Sanjogam. Fertilization with the gametes from the parents. Think about the time when there was no development of the molecular biology, embryology, etc. But our peoples, our ancestors could think that there are two partners, two factors. We call some bhavas, Pitrija bhav, Matrija bhav, etc. And on the basis of that, there are 7 types of Prakriti again, emphasized on the basis of the origin. Shukra Sunitam Prakriti, Kala Garbhasam Prakriti, Adru, etc. This outcome of the Prakriti depends upon so many factors, which is influenced by Prakriti, Jati, Prashakta, Kul, Prashakta, Deshanupatini, Kalanupatini, Bhayanupatini, Pratatmaniyatavitti. What is that? How we can correlate to the modern genetics? Yes, we can correlate. We observe that human being, the genetics are changed by the environmental, climatic, food, etc. Let's see what is meaning about the Prakriti, Jati, Prashakta. Nothing but the ethnicity. We know that there is an ethnic group. The whole human being can be classified on the ethnicity into 4 categories in the world. Some are Mongoloids, some are Caucasians, some are Austroasiatics, some are Dravidian. So this ethnicity is observed by,
Yes.
so this is Prakriti, Jati, Prashakta depends upon the ethnicity group. That was observed. And another is that familial background. Shukra Sunitam Prakriti, coming from the familial background. It also depends upon the Desh, geographical pattern. We observe the SLC4 gene, the SNP, which is responsible for the skin coloration according to from one zone to other zone. It is again mentioned in our science. Depending upon the time also from one time to other time, we know that there is change of doses from time to time. We call it the Choya Prakapu, Vayo Grisho Dishu Trishu. Also depending upon the age. We know that in the early age there is prevalence of the copper, in the middle is the Pitta, in the later there is Patu. Modern medicine is modern genetics for people. They are saying also there is change. What is called the epigenetics. By exposing to the environment. But the most important part is that, which will emphasize here, is individualism. Individual variation is the most important diagnosis of Prakriti. And individualism based on 3 fundamental parts of Bato, which represent the kinetic activity, Pitta on the metabolic, and Kapha for the potentiality. Our Tridosa theory. And that Tridosa theory varies from one individual to other individual. That also gives the hints about the normal limit of the health, how far you can maintain from particular individual Prakriti predominance. Or even the disease and the treatment schedule can also be based on this particular Prakriti determination. So, my dear students and the respected all the dignitaries present here, we must emphasize on this particular issue of Prakriti on the basis of the Vata Pitta Kapha and try to make a link with the modern genetics. We know that there are some particular physiological functions, specificity about the Batu, Pitta and Kapha. I'm not going in detail because everybody of us are Ayurvedists and we know very well. For some example, I'm giving some example that the Batu is responsible for Gati, Bhagati, Gandana. What is Gati? Gati is nothing but the signaling. Gati is nothing but the networking, regulation. You know that in our cell, starting from the cell membrane up to the inner part, there is oxidative phosphorylation, there is the second messenger activity, there is protein kinase C activity followed by some expression. This is being done by the Batu. All the energetic activity, the enzymatic activity, the endocrinal activity, that is being maintained by Pitta. Tapdahi, Tap Santapi, Tap Ishwariye. And all assimilative activity, storage activity, building activity is being done by Kapha. Srismo Alingani. This is the fundamental part, but there are so many other things. I'm not going in detail about that. And this has been described classically in our science, classically. If you can go through the text, you can find it, Charak Vimastan chapter 8, where you can find very specifically about the specificity about the Batu, Pitta and Kapha Prakriti. Each and every word of that text has been explained in detail, how it can be expressed by physiological phenomenon, by anatomical structures, by psychological manner. Specificity about three phenomena: anatomical, physiological, and psychological. So, and I know that I can give one just example. If one person is very pittajo, we can find a Krishna Akriya, Murasa sitting, we get it. We can classify the Agni on the basis of the prevalence of doses. If the Pitta is prevalent, we call it Tikshnakni. If Batu is prevalent, we call it the Vishamakni. If Kapha is prevalent, we call it the Mandakni. If all are in equilibrium, we call it the Samakni. One example is that. Sure, we can understand the Prakriti. There is a detailed study. I'm not going here in detail because the time is limited. Apart from the physiological activity, we can also identify the Batojo, Pittajo, Kapuja on the basis of the external structures, phenotyping structures. On the basis of the body frame, body build, the skin, hair, food habits, movement, weight gain, communications, including the memory. The Batojo people, they can grasp very quickly, but they cannot retain it for a long time. The Kapuja people, they can retain it, although they grasp slowly, but that they can retain what they gain from the knowledge. They can retain it in our the brain. Moderate is in the case of the Pitta. Not only in case of the memory, in case of the communication. But the people, they talk too much. They become talkative. Talkative doesn't mean that it is bad. They're interactive. They can intermingle with the people very easily. They can explore themselves. But it is the people of the Kapujo. But they have very good communication skill. On the other hand, the Pittaji people as a we can understand it. We have to understand it on the basis of the physical phenomenon. We have developed one questionnaire, and that takes 5 to 1 hour for one individual to search one particular Prakriti. So, on the basis of this Prakriti, again, in Charak Sutrastan chapter 20, the disease prevalence has been mentioned. If one is a Batu predominant, they may suffering with a particular disease of the heart, hridravo, arrhythmia, there may be speech disorders, there may be some neurological, psychological disturbances. Pittaja people may suffer from skin diseases in a particular manner. In the name like that, it is mentioned that Togdahuscho, Bispotokoscho, there may be the ulceration, Bruno, there may be the bleeding disorders. The Kapuja people may have suffering with the disease like atherosclerotic changes, may have suffering with the like otistolio, obesity, may suffering from that the hyperlipidemic condition, thermonephrity vishwascha. So this is specificity about the disease prevalence. But just see that long back how The specificity of the individuals was mentioned. And that was mentioned for personal health care. It may be predictive, preventive, promotive, or it may be curative by means of the Ahar, Aushadha, and Bihar. And you know that this Aushadha, of different types of Aushadha has been designed on the basis of this specificity of this Prakriti Vichar. So, Ayurgenomics is nothing but the connection between the Ayurveda giving the hints about the environmental, lifestyle, and diet, which include genomics, give the methods, and we can go for the screening, diagnosis, and after that on the therapy. That's why we have to understand the fundamental part. Fundamental is nothing but very critical. We have to understand it by modern biology. We can also understand it very simply. If we can say about what is Pitta, for a layperson who are not Ayurvedists, we can say that it is nothing but a metabolic activity which is maintaining like that. Please. We know that the glucose, it can be converted into pyruvic acid by 10 states of reaction, which is known as the EMP path, glycolysis path. It is maintained by the Pitta. One example. And there may be hemorrhagic disorders by if there is in disorder of the Pitta. If there is influence of the Vata, that is responsible for the signaling transporting system, and if there is impairing, that may lead to neurological disorders. And on the other hand, if it is a cough, that will relating with the all conditions related to the storage. We know that what we consume, that may be stored. Maybe the fat may be stored in the depot fat. Whenever need, it can break down. But if it is excess, then that may cause some disease like hyperlipidemia, obesity, so on and so forth, which is called the Stollo, Medo, etc. So this is the fundamental approach on the basis of this Prakriti. And on the basis of that, the scientists of the IGIB Trisutra group, they search the cluster of people they have taken. In 2001, they started their journey with some people in the northern part of India. Some subjects screened by purely Ayurvedic method of the Prakriti determination, and thereby they have screened the DNA variations, genome variations. Interestingly, they observed that cluster of peoples of the particular individuality has specificity of genetic. I'll just disclose one or two examples. And this genetic background, we know that the Indian people by HapMap genetical mapping, they categorize into 4 categories. One is the Tibeto-Burman, Indo-European, Dravidian, and Austroasiatics. This cluster of peoples from different zones of this, India, they are prevalent. By coloration you can find it. And this cluster of people, one Indo-European group was observed from North Indian part. And this is the clusteration. And they were screened on the basis of this Ayurvedic pattern, and particular single nucleotide polymorphism found in a particular individual's Prakriti. This is the marvelous part of this Prakriti with the genomics, which was started by Journey. This was published. You can find it in the Journal of the Translational Medicine 2008. And they observed that the Vata people had the high prolactin level at prothrombin time with these people. Pitta had the high hemoglobin, PCP, RBC. Copper had the high lipid profile. And these Vata people had cell cycle, transport, olfactory transaction, and so many activities. High immune response to the Pitta and cellular biosynthesis by the copper. This was published in Journal of Translational Medicine 2008 by Bhavna Prasad and so many papers. And then it was filled in the network. Prakriti was filled in the network phenotyping. Network between the genetical map and our Prakriti. And one important issue is that from there we find from the healthy populations, Ayurgenomics, and that's based on the heterogeneity from different colors of people, black to white. Whether this is being present, it refers the questions. Yes, we find it So this is a scientific background. And the most important single nucleotide polymorphism which is EGLN1. This was found in this northern part of the people who were mostly copper predominant, and a HAPE, I mean high altitude pulmonary edema, was found in this particular. What is EGLN1 gene or SNP? This is an oxygen sensor gene. In the high altitude, you know that the people, as they live in the high altitude, they have to accustom to the high altitude. They have to compromise with the oxygen supply. These people, those who are copper predominant, they have this particular gene in this particular area. And this is another marvelous work which was published, again it was published in the journal of it, the Translational Medicine, EGLN1 by this group. And this EGLN1 is studied by some other people in some other part of the world. We can correlate with those copper protein. So I'm not going in detail about this publication and these hypoxic models of EGLN1, which control different activities, lipid metabolism, hematocrit values. The Alzheimer's disease can be predicted from here. We can predict the leptin disorders, which is found in case of this, that the hyperlipidemia. So hypoxic response is the most important response, which makes the most important foundation from the Bipitaka theory on the basis of the modern genetics, and ultimately this was published and this was documented. So we then proceed for the projects. This Mitali Mukherjee invited different scientists from all over the India. I was fortunate enough, I got the chance to be associated with this project in 2012. And in this project, 10 centers were selected. I am very proud that we did able to get this project in our institute in J.B. Rai State Ayurvedic Medical College from eastern part, nobody else. From western part it is the Jamnagar, Gujarat Ayurvedic Medical. The northern part it was the Chaudhary Brahm Prakash, and from the southern part it is the Pune KLE. Apart from these, there are some other institutions from the modern part. It was the All India Institute of Medical Science, the Delhi, the Indian Institute of Science in the Bangalore, and so many so forth. There are three types of this, that the pattern by which we can understand this determination of the Prakriti. One is the clinical phenotyping Ayurveda procedures of Prakriti determination. Then some objective measurements, I'm coming one after another, and third is the molecular genomic analysis. To make a link between these three, and we did it. Because we have to understand the Hetilinga Ganam Sastaturam Parayanam, which is mentioned in the Charak Sutra that Tishuttam Sastadam Punnam Pubudinam Pitamaham. If we can get it, then we can go for treatment procedures. What the future impact of medical science of this concept? Yes, we have the key. We have to open the lock. We can enter in the room, which is still remaining dark, with the help of our Ayurveda. And that can be done by Ayurgenomics. This is the institute who are involved in this particular work: NIMHANS, AIMS, NCBI, ICI, MDU, IBAB, CBPS, KLE, Jamnagar, Bhadu, CSR, and we from the Kolkata JB Hospital. We had a team, a big team. We worked on this particular issue together, and we have been given the responsibility to work on the Bengali population, those who are Bengali, purely Bengali, those living in the Bengal as a Bengali for last 5 generations. It's a very tough job, really very tough job. We get some hints from one text we call Niharanjan Rai, Bengali Itihas, where there is mentioning that how this Bengali population came. It is mentioned some hybrid population. One scientist from British zone, H.S. Risley, he mentioned that we are the mixture of the Mongoloid and Dravidian. The anthropologist mentioned that we are proto-Asteroids, okay? But Niharanjan Rai, he has categorized some people on the basis of some structure. He mentioned that those are Brahmin, they are the medium build. Head is the mesocephalic, sharp nose, black hair, cornea light to deep brown, skin color is light brown to fire. Those are the castes, they are almost similar to Brahmin, but other caste varies. Genetically, some particular SNPs has so far been established, which has been published in 2005 in the American Journal of the Human Genetics, with this Bengali population, R1A1, R2A, and H1. Most prevalent is R1A1, 71.22%. And these caste and subcaste depends upon the so many subclasses on the basis of the clusters. Clusters on the basis of genetical variations. We do not ignore. We do not hate the upper caste, lower caste. All caste some specificity on the genetical background. There may be the Uttam Shankar, there may be the Madhyam Shankar, there may be Adham Shankar on the basis of some specificity. I'm not going into detail about that. Somebody is talking. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you
Yes,
are
sir.
audible, sir.
Okay. So,
Continue, sir.
if we go through the geography of the West Bengal, just see about West Bengal geography. So many peculiarities here there. You can find Himalaya in our state. You can find the sea in our state, from Darjeeling to the Kakdeep. You can find desert from Purulia to the Anupdes in the Nadia. So peculiarity in this Bengal group is a mixture. In a very, very rare part of this India, these type of these variations there. It makes us very confused on which type. We know that there is specificity of the doses in a particular desha, Anupdesha, Jangal Desha, Hadam Desha. So we can find our study in a particular zone, particularly Howrah, Hooghly, Kolkata zone. We have screened 2,000 populations for continuous 3 years by means of the Ayurvedic way of the Prakriti determination. And this was done by camp. Every day you to go from part. And then we proceed. And you know it very well that the specificity of the dosic variation depends upon the geographic changes. In our Charasingita, it is mentioned there are two types of this skull, one is Adhan and the Bishakto. There is also specificity about the body strength. Ada Bante Durbula Bishako Dana Nina Madhe Madhe Valantante, system of Christian. Yes. In geographical issues. And the body strain, the dosage variation also very specificity. And the specificity of a change of doses from this one sitting to the classical, which is important. Considering all these points, we evaluated the Prakriti. And this evaluation was done by specific approach. You know that it is very tough to make one convinced. If you go to the outside from the Ayurvedic fraternity, if you say, I'll do some Prakriti determination, nobody will come to you. It's a very tough job. But apart from that, I'm very proud to say that some of the scholars of the Ayurveda of Bengal, they're doing it. In Purulia, one group leading with Dr. Argo Mukherjee, Dr. Amar Kole, they are doing how we can contact the Ayurveda with common people. One group from the Coach Bihar, the Basa Pandit Dinda, he is doing also. So many groups are doing now. These two are the prominent names. We also approached, and you know that this approach was done with a very simple, that the pliers. We make some simple pliers expressing that what they're trying to do in a very colloquial language. Colloquial language. Make some camp propaganda. These are some examples of the camp, and we did it in different parts of the Kolkata Howrah. And you know that for doing any research, it is ethical by WHO that you should have to take the informed consent. That's what they're trying to do. Unless they give the consent, you cannot proceed. This is the fundamental part of research. And it is the subject information sheet, SIS, ICF and SIS. These are the two important issues. We must have to produce it to the individual. They should understand it, yes. Then you can do it. We had to do it. For every individual, we have to give some time that they should understand, yes. Then we proceed. And we proceed with some specific questionnaire. There are some short questionnaire by which we just understand they may be suffering. That it is not confirmed. We confirm the detailed Prakriti questionnaires. From the camp, we just proceed with the short questionnaire. Then we call them in our institute. We had one Ayurgenomics unit, researching with that, where we go for the detailed Prakriti questionnaires on the basis of the anatomical variation, physiological variation, psychological variations. Apart from that, we did some objective parameters in our lab. This is our lab, this is Ayurgenomics lab. You can see there is one fridge. I'll talk about the importance of this fridge. What we did with this fridge. The fridge, it is a minus 85 degrees centigrade temperature fridge, which can preserve the DNA samples for about 100 years, more than 100 years, if the fridge is not disturbed. Okay, and in this lab, we did some that specific pattern of this investigation. This is a short questionnaire of operational procedures. We have standardized it, and we also standardized some other questionnaires. And then we proceed for the anthropometric measurement. 44 varieties of anthropometric measurement we did. We have read the Praman Saris, Anguli Praman, Anjali Praman, etc. And one of the important Praman is the Anguli Praman. But we did it by modern perspectives. Measurement of the different parts of the body, 44 parts of the body. It takes about 1.5 hours for one individual to do it. Initially, it took about 3 hours, but when our scholars became very expertise, they did it by short time of the half an hour of the 40 minutes. And these are some example of this anthropometric measurement of different parts of the body, or the whole body. 44 measurements we did it, and then we standardize it by standard operational procedures. With each and every part of the body, when we measured the measurement of the width of the all 4 fingers of right hand, that was one standardized. For the left hand, other standardization. For the measurement of the second digit of the right hand, one measurement. For the third digit, one. For the fourth digit, another. We had to do it. So this had been done. Then you go for the another measurement, which is called the heart rate variability. We see Hridrabo is found in case of the Batajo. But in case of Kapujo, we can find Hridrabo. It's a fundamental. So this is it's a very important testing. The steel table, the patient is, not the patient, subject, healthy subject, they're allowed to, and the environment become very cool, no sound is there, light is very soft. Then slowly the table is tilted. During this tilting, you can see that in the right picture, one lady is doing some measurement. What is the measurement? That measurement is done in computerized the heart rate variability. Interestingly, you observe that this heart rate variability differs from one prakriti to other prakriti. And there is a similarity of the heart rate variability in a particular similar prakriti. Another was the chemometric measurement. They know that the skin coloration is important, and that we measure by sabermetric measurement. It can be done. And another important is the gastrometric measurement. We know that the sense of gustation, the Rosso, Ashadam, differs from one individual to other. Because we know that the sour Rosas, Madhuramla Lavan Koditya Kasa is prevalent to a particular doses. Madhuramla Lavan is prevalent to the Kapo, Amlo Lavan, and that the Kotu is prevalent to the Pitto, Koditya Kasa is prevalent to the Bhattacya Prakriti. We had to understand. This is another important issue which has been done, a metallic probe by electric gastrometer, and that was done in different parts of tongue. We measured it, and finally go for the measurement of the lung capacity, which also varies from one individual to other individual by spirometric measurement. All these are documented and make link with these Prakriti questionnaires, whether there is linking, and then you go for the genetical mapping. And that was done by 2 samples. One is saliva, other is the stool. Blood. The saliva was collected in a very specially prepared device, Shall I continue? It was brought from the USA, and after collecting it, it was the cap of this came at 85 will keep the DNA intact. We also collected the blood and also kept it because you know that we cannot do it in one day. We preserve, and at the end of our 3 year study, we go for the assessment. We assessment for the DNA sequence, and that DNA sequence is done in our lab. We did it, and you can see the sequences. This is a sequence of DNA from the saliva and blood of particular prakriti. And interestingly, you observe that you can find the 3 particular type of the sequences. Now, this downstreaming work is going on in the IGIB. We did this separation of the DNA sequences from these samples, also the RNA samples from the blood, and they were specifically coded, and we observed that there is specificity of these sequences. As the work is going on till now, we cannot disclose it, but very soon this will be disclosed among the different centers of this Ayurgenomics study. I'm very proud to say that Bengal group is getting the priority because of these detailed working. Except Bengal, nowhere is doing in so much detailed work. Okay, this is the evidence which was published to our initial work in the Journal of the Ethnopharmacology, with the most prestigious journal. One issue of the journal was devoted for Ayurveda, only with Ayurveda from different parts of country, and we published our work in this particular journal. On the basis of that, we then proceed for whether there is a prediction of this genomic study on the reflection of the disease specificity. Because Rogam Adam Parishyat Tata Anantaram Ausadam. Parishyat means there is specifically the Prakriti Pariksha is one important. Anatasapita Pariksha. Prakriti Prakriti. The final year students, they used to do it. So this is most important. Then we proceed for the specification of the disease oriented, because there is very specificity of disease on the basis of the specificity of doses. Bath was 80 variety from Nokabed to the City Bronx, Pitta specificity from Daho to the Kusto, Copper specificity from Tandra to the Gurugatra of 20 varieties. So we have to understand which type of the disease is prevalent in the particular. Then we can go for the treatment. It may be the preventive therapy by Dina Charcha, Riti Charcha, that by means of this preventive aspect, Rasayan therapy. Or we go for the specific purification therapies, maybe any type of this Shodhan, or sometimes maybe the Samsaman. There may be some specificity of the Samsaman for the pathogen variety, maybe drug, maybe some specificity about the Shodhan like the Snehan, Basti, for the Picto, Viration, or the particular type of the drugs which may contain some specific type of rosas like sweet, bitter, astringent, some specific beads may be there. So on the basis of that, we approaches for the specificity of this Prakriti reflection on specific disease, the diabetes mellitus. Why? Because diabetes mellitus is a very prevalent in our country. If you go through the diabetic prevalence throughout the world, it is our state, our country, which is the topmost. And in our science, Ayurveda, again, that is mentioned. If you go through the Paramahurugadika, you can find how it is originated. Asashukam, Sapnasukam, Dodini, Gramma, Mudukam, Purasapayangsi, Naban Napanam, Guru Barikitatam. Prameho Hetu Kapukitcha Sarvam. Copper is most predominant. We try to search out whether it is correct or wrong. You know that with the people, from our previous study, you observed that mainly copper is prevalent in our Bengali populations. So far, we have studied with the 2000 populations. Because of this anuptes, specificity of the diet, geographical pattern, etc. We try to find out whether there is any. My student who is doing the DNA sequence, she is not a person from the Ayurveda, she is a molecular biologist. She is working in collaboration with our Ayurvedic people. She is doing it in the particular one. She has taken a very small sample of 36 patients, and those who are purely Bengali origin. We did some the same specific questionnaire for the Prakriti on the specific modification on the disease. And we go for the specific anthropometric measurement. Some important the height weight ratio, mid arm circumference, hip waist ratio, or the most important the BMI, body mass index. And specifically we took the diabetic marker like ABS, PPBS, and HbA1c. Let's see the interesting findings. We observed that 3 groups consisting 12 patients. Among these, the Kapoja Prakriti people has a weight is higher than the Pittojan Batajo. Waist is higher than the other 2. BMI is higher. Not only that, the biochemical marker like ABS, PPBS, HbA1c, these were again found to be higher in case of the Kapoja Prakriti. Next to Kapoja is the Batajo. And this interesting finding was published in a particular journal. And we find that this variation of the copper predominancy in the diabetic populations in our part, next to it is the Batajo. We know that the Madhumeha is a type under the Batajo, which depends upon the dietary and geographical habitat as well as genetic factors. But I can say that this was published in the Indian Journal of the Traditional Knowledge, where the comparative analysis of the biochemical parameters among the 3 Prakriti individuals having type 2 diabetes mellitus in the Bengali population. We did it. So, the learned audience, we now come to the conclusion. Yes, there is a link between the Ayurvedic concept of the Prakriti with the modern concept of genomics. That is the fundamental part of the genomics.
Sorry, sir. Ishaq Ahmed, kindly don't present anything. Sir,
Oh, once again.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the last part, we are already in the last part now. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Continue, sir. Yeah.
So this was the publication. Anybody can see it. You can visualize it. What is the finding there? Now, what you are all again. I like to conclude. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay,
Sir.
okay.
Audible,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if we like to understand ourselves, every individual, aham, ami, every individual is expressed by ami. Because everybody will say the ami, I. And that ami is again expressed by our great poet, Rabindranath Tagore. Let's know, আমার চেতনার রঙে পান্না হলো সবুজ, চুনি উঠল রাঙা হয়ে, আমি চোখ মেললুম আকাশে জ্বলে উঠল আলো, পূবে পশ্চিমে, গোলাপের দিকে চেয়ে বললুম সুন্দর, সুন্দর হলো সে। তুমি বলবে যে তত্ত্ব কথা, কবির বাণী নয়, আমি বলবো এই সত্য তাই এ কাব্য। Name of this poem is Ami, where the poet is mentioning that তত্ত্বজ্ঞানী জপ করছেন নিঃশ্বাসে প্রশ্বাসে, আর ওদিকে অসীম যিনি স্বয়ং করছেন সাধনা, তাকেই বলে আমি। So that army of every individual, whenever go for the studying of individual, for treatment, for diagnosis, for prevention. So I think that it becomes too much about Ayurgenomics. Everybody become bored for a long. This is our team, myself, along with my team, Dr. Supriya Chaudhary, Dr. Srikanta Pandit, Dr. Uttanjana, Dr. Prashanta Sarkar, along with my team of scholars, Amitabh Acharya, Joyasri Haldar, Sohili Banerjee, Nandini Poira, Masidev Ghosh, Amurta Toloi, all of them are still engaged in the, that Amitabh Acharya, he is a student of Rajiv Gandhi, he is now established with this Ayurgenomics project in the public health under the Ayush in Delhi. Sohili is doing the PhD at the Open University. Nandini is doing work as a scientist in the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. After doing work, Basudev is working in the public in the government of West Bengal. And another scholar is Kollan Mandal. He is now doing work as a scientist in the Regional Occupational Center in Kolkata. I also express my thanks to some people, Mitali Mukherjee, Bhavna Prasad, Binuja Farma, and Bharat Kuntia, who has helped a lot to evaluate this whole study. So with this, I conclude here, and we are at the eve of this Durga Puja. Already Mohala is over, so I pay to all of you the congratulations, happy Durga Puja. Thank you very much. If anybody has a question, please don't hesitate.
Thank you so much, sir, for your brilliant presentation. And now the session for queries. If anybody is having question, they may ask the question directly to our sir. Anybody?
But I got about 25 tweets. Huh? I think that there are 25 tweets. How can I see it? Okay, can I see? Okay, let's see. Oh, so many, so many. Yes. Professor Mondal has mentioned your topic proves that our Prakriti concept is good. Dr. Suresh has mentioned, thank you very much for a nice presentation. And some unknown senders.
One question.
Yes, sure.
I heard you for your nice presentation. On behalf of our institution, we are awaiting for your next presentation. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tuinda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tapas Mandal, for giving me opportunity to come into it.
No. It is our great privilege that your presentation, your nice speech in our web seminar.
Yes, sir. So, do I ask sir some question?
Sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, it has been seen that in modern science, they are having some standardization. Any disease, they are having some prescription, they actually follow them properly. But in our science, it has been seen that some people came along with some cough, cold, whatever, and actually two people came. And usually we are giving the same medication to all, okay, for them also. Not only that, even it has been seen, if I am giving Sitapaladi Churna, some other giving Kafakaturasa, someone giving Narodya Lakshmi Bilash. Now the question is, for minimum one disorder also, for cough, cold, whatever, we are not having any standardization that exactly particular this disorder, based on even the Prakriti also, we should give that kind of medications and all. So is it possible to standardize based on the Prakriti, all the disease, all the medications, based on the disease and all, is it possible?
Really, very interesting question. Very, very interesting question. This question also strike to me also. You know that the Central Council of Indian Medicine as well as Ayush has developed on standard treatment guideline, STG. But I think that STG is not at the level of what we want to say. It was done simply on the basis of symptoms. It can be done, and it should be done. The variations of the treatment, specificity of the treatment to according to the individual regions, and that is needed to be done with the teamwork. You know that the people who is living in the Kerala, people who is living in the Bengal, people who is living in the Tamil Nadu or in the Rajasthan, having the same type of the features, may not be treated with the same type of the therapy because of the variations of the Prakriti, which may be influenced by the climatic we may be influenced by geographical part. We may be influenced by their habit, their food habits, their rituals, their living style. So it is a teamwork. Once a few months back, I proposed to prepare one guideline of standard treatment guideline from some people from different parts of the India, and I proposed that this should be done if everybody can come in one table and they can be consensus with a particular issue. It's a tough job. It's don't think that just think that the Ayurveda has not been written by one day by one people. It has been written by the several years of the experiences. What you see the Charak Samhita, what is written by the Agnivesh. Don't think that Agnivesh was written by himself by his only innovation. It is the experience which has been gained by some of these ancestors for about 100 years. One of my teachers, that he was the director of the genetics in the PG hospital. I worked under him, Professor Nitai Bhattacharya. He mentioned that don't ignore that the science Ayurveda which has been mentioned in Charak Samhita. Don't think that that has been written only by seeing one or two symptoms. It has been written. It is in the evidence-based medicine. It has been accumulated for a long period. So it is a good proposal by Priyanka. It can be done, and I think that we should have to prepare one monograph in a very collaborative way. We can start from the Bengal school. We can approach to the other schools. Please come together. Because that cannot be done by one geographically by one group. Only the fact is that you have to become consensus. In our science, that is very deficient. We cannot make consensus. If I say one thing, other will obviously opposite. I think so. But one may oppose, no problem. But that opposition should be based on some rational way. That can be done. I believe it so. I may not be doing so, but later, that the other generations, those coming generation, they can do it. But obviously, what I saw that it should be done in collaborative way by joining hand with other peoples. Otherwise, it will not be visible. It should be feasible only by that way.
Thank you so much, sir. So another thing that already this kind of project work and the studies, everything is going on in West Bengal definitely. But some other colleges, if there are other students and others who are postgraduate and whatever, if they are also coming to know exactly the studies, and if they are also interested to do the same thing as particularly not the government colleges and all, they are actually belonging in the private colleges. So if they are also interested for any kind of this kind of project, because if students they will know about it, then only they would be little bit interested, and based on that we may progress this study all over the West Bengal. Not only that, sometimes if it is possible outside of West Bengal also, we may continue our studies all over the India. So that's why, is it possible to run this same project by some other colleges which are not belonging to the government bodies and all?
No problem, Priyanka. It can be done. At least my door is open. Anybody can come. But the problem is that in one meeting, I with Professor Mandal attended in the CRI, where the CCRS has strictly mentioned that we can give the project to the government. I think that this is not rational. This should not be. But nowadays, that these ideas have been changed. If you can submit good projects with its practicability, it will be accepted. If you want any type of the help from myself, I'm always with you. I'm always with you.
Thank you so much, sir. And the last thing from my side, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
হ্যাঁ তাপস
বলছি, আমার ক্লিনিক্যাল এস্টাবলিশমেন্ট ছিল না এতদিন, আমি ক্লিনিক্যাল এস্টাবলিশমেন্ট লাইসেন্স বের করেছি, এরপর আমি ঝাঁপাবো আপনি যেটা বললেন ওটার জন্য।
একেবারে আমি আছি, চিন্তা করিস না, আমি সঙ্গে আছি।
আমি ওইটার জন্য আমি এতদিন আগাতে পারিনি, ওটা পেয়েছি, এরপরে আমি ঝাঁপাবো।
Okay. So, sir, the last question for you, sir. That is, sometimes it's so many times we have faced the same problem that some people came. Okay, whenever the patient is coming to our clinics or in our hospital also, already they are having such a Bikriti. Okay, so what happened for the Prakriti? We are actually seeing their, I mean, others all features, external features, along with their all whatever the questionnaire is already there. Sometimes we are asking directly because we are having not that such of forms and all. So afterwards also sometimes we are going for checking their nari, I mean nari pariksha and all. So what happened? Sometimes we are becoming little bit confused about the prakriti and vikriti. This one is actually their prakriti or this one is vikriti. So how to actually differentiate the prakriti and vikriti in case of the treatment purpose or the diagnosis purpose? Could you enlighten this matter little bit?
Yes. In fact, whenever we examine a patient in the hospital or the OPD or the clinics, they are coming in the Bikriti stage. They are not in the stage of the Prakriti at all. But how can go for the analysis of the Prakriti? One is that you have to ask the questions on the basis on the condition when he or she was in the healthy. Number two is that the Bikriti is nothing but the outcome of the Prakriti. If the Prakriti is disturbed, then that becomes Prakriti. So there should be very specificity of the Prakriti on the basis of specificity of the Prakriti. For example, a patient having the bath of the Prakriti, they may have specific Prakriti, like the pain in the joints. That is the expression of the Bhathoja Prakriti. But that can be predicted. I'm just giving one example. It is not the final one. We have taken a lot of questions. So these two ways. One is that you have to understand the healthy condition. When he or she was healthy, you have to ask that question. And secondly, what is the condition at present in our diabetic project, what has been done by my student Sohaili Banerjee, is doing a PhD. We do it, modified it, on the basis of fundamental Prakriti of that particular dosing variations and what can be happen in a case if it is turned into the Prameho. That is to be done. Otherwise, you will not be able to reach to that particular Prakriti. It's a tough job and it requires a time. Every individual patient with the specific symptom that may need some clarification.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your very nice explanations along with very, I mean, vivid and lucid presentations. And today we actually, what this Prakriti, this topic always becoming abandoned by some other Ayurvedic doctors. They are at a stage giving all medications, same like and same diagnosis and all. So we are very happy that, sir, you have enlightened this factor which is always becoming hidden for others all. So we are very much grateful to you for this very nice presentation and very informative presentations. And now, if anybody is having questions, still you may ask and you may write down the question in this chat box also. Before that, I am going to announce for the next week. Previously, it has been told that Thursday I am having one presentation, but this presentation has been changed. Okay, that day the speaker is Dr. Vijay Anand Mukherjee sir, and the topic is refractive errors and cataract with the Ayurvedic perspective. So I think the timing is same, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Thursday. Date is, again I'm telling, 24th September. So I think the same all the participants would be there and they will enjoy the entire presentation along with this webinar and all everything. And so now the time already came. I have to check once if there is having any question or not. No. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Okay. So, sir, now the time to say goodbye for tonight.
Thank you very much, Priyanka.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Okay.
Bye.